Welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast, where we're addressing the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. Join us each week as we spark a midlife renewal and create a firm foundation for the next wonderful, exciting, awesome season of life.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. It is great to be here with you today. I'm Curtis and I'm here with my fellow host.
Hi, it's Karen. Good to be with y'all.
We are continuing on our neuroscience journey, and we're riding our elephant. And this is about how to work with your elephant, part one.
Yes. I've started thinking to myself, how can I make my elephant like my best friend?
Your best friend, your buddies.
Sorry. I mean, maybe after you, honey.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better to be after you or before you, but there you go. So here's something that came in from a listener who messaged us and said, "You're doing phenomenal work. The research and courage, planning, and discernment put into these podcasts is evident and critical for us in our culture. I especially like the examples where we can hear real stories and struggle and see more fully how to apply these tools to the reality of our own lives."
Well, that's lovely and it's appreciated. Mm-hmm. And it's also informative for us to hear from you. Well, something that really strikes me is that she likes the examples. She likes the embodied information. And that's, in a lot of ways, that's what we're talking about, right? We're embodied and gee, there's more to this experience than our conscious mind.
Exactly. Yes. Your elephant loves models, stories, examples. And so I actually really appreciate that the listener said that, because we can be lecturers sometimes.
Yeah.
But we always realize it's the examples we remember.
Yeah.
Years later, it's the examples.
So here's an analogy for you thinking about the unconscious mind. We will sit down at our computer and we'll tippy tap on the keyboard, maybe create a document or a video. We'll post it on the internet. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, we really don't understand how all of that computer stuff works and the networks and the servers and
hardware versus software. You know what? Even when people try to explain it to me, I'm just totally clueless.
Yeah. So that's what it's like. That's part of the human experience is to be working the keyboard, but only have some idea of how the underlying processes work.
So all this stuff is going on under the surface.
Yeah. And here's for the Star Trek fans among you.
Okay.
Here's an analogy. It's like you're in your, USS Enterprise, and then you go to the Tortuga Lamunia Bunga system, and you find this abandoned spaceship.
Yeah.
And you jet over there, beam over there, sorry. And you're operating this strange spaceship, but you really don't understand the underlying technology and a lot of the buttons. You're not quite sure what they do, and you're just kind of working it out as you go forward.
Yeah, that reminds me, and this has nothing to do with anything, but in a crossword puzzle I was working on yesterday, the clue was a phrase that Captain Kirk actually never said on Star Trek. And it was, of course, "Beam me up, Scotty."
He never said that.
He never said it. I was like, no, it can't be that. No, it's definitely that.
I did not know that.
Well, there you go. Interesting fact of the day. So part of what we're trying to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis, is we're just trying to shed a little light on what's going on in the depths of the computer or the depths of that alien technology, because we want to work with it, collaborate with it.
Well, it really matters a lot because there's a lot of reasons. We've kind of talked about this. We can live our life unconsciously. And we can always do a better job of bringing our great virtues and talents and spiritual life to the forefront and into action and to pursuit of love and compassion and those greatest goals and aspirations that we have.
Yeah. So we're going to take a few episodes and pull out some very key points about what your elephant is doing for you and how it operates. And then give you just some practical tips about how to work with it. And because we have to communicate with the elephant the way it communicates if we want to get results.
Makes sense. My elephant's ready. It's like, please get this person to cooperate with me.
Okay, so can I do the first one?
Please do.
Okay, because this one I just find very intriguing when I learned it. Okay, your unconscious mind, your elephant, does not process negatives. It doesn't process negatives. That's why, the big story about someone says, don't think of a white elephant, and what happens? You immediately think of a white elephant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's because your unconscious mind can't process the don't. It moves right towards white elephant. And then your conscious mind has to come in and process the don't aspect.
Well, that's what's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense that I can't do much without some kind of internal representation
Yes.
of what we're involved with. But the idea that my conscious mind has to stick the no in there is interesting.
It's very interesting. And so, okay, so it makes me sort of sorry that I spent a lot of years telling my kids don't do something. And, and of course, they're going to move right to do that thing because they're not processing the don't.
Yeah, there's a Charles Dobson Focus on the Family story, and it's something like there's this dad and he's with these young children, and there must have been somebody else in the house, but the kids have these beans and he has to go somewhere.
Like they're eating beans for dinner?
Yeah, they're at a table and there's these beans.
Okay.
And he says, okay, well, I think you kids, everything's going to be fine. I'll see you later. Just don't put the beans up your nose. And so you could guess where they all were about 3 hours later.
Getting the beans out of the dough?
Yes.
Oh, no. I've had that experience, only not with beans. I think it was like some craft object.
Yeah, it was a little circular disc thing.
Oh, yeah. That was hilarious.
Yeah, later it was hilarious.
So here's the tip, okay? When you're giving direction to your elephant or you're talking to it, you want to use positive, not negative intentions. So you have to tell it what you want and not what you don't want, right? So if you say like, geez, I just don't want to end up in a dead-end job, you're actually communicating to your unconscious that you wanted to look for a dead-end job.
Yeah.
And it's really intriguing how this works because your unconscious takes that as guidance for what it is your goal is and what you want to do. So always make it about what you want and not what you don't want.
Yeah, I think athletes really get this. They're focused on the positive. They're going to go out and think about hitting the ball. They're not going to think about striking out.
Yes.
And the Astros are going to think about hitting the ball when
not
they
about
play the
striking
Phillies. And I'm sorry, Mary, you know who you are, but we can't be on the same side for this one.
Very fun. Very fun. So one really common way that I've changed what I say is I've stopped saying, don't forget XYZ. And instead I say, remember to stop by the store. Remember to make that phone call.
Oh, this is you controlling my elephant. I get it. Well, it makes sense.
Well, I say that to you too, actually.
I need the help. That's good.
Yeah. Awesome. So this actually leads me into another thing about your elephant, and you kind of alluded to this just now, Curtis, is it likes the images and the pictures and the internal representation. So the unconscious mind is symbolic. It's symbolic. So it's going to respond to symbols and images. So if you can give it a picture, some kind of a representation of what you're going for, you're going to get a lot more buy-in from your elephant, especially if it's like a sensory-filled image.
Yeah, so you start to pile in the details. For instance, there's certain visualization exercises you do in certain contexts.
Yeah.
or you're piling in the detail of that, say, future condition and trying to make it as immediately present as possible.
Right. Right. And so visualization is really big, and it doesn't always work because you have to do it the right way. And there's a lot of wrong ways to do it. But part of what it's getting at is you have to give yourself a visualization, image, symbol of what you're trying to get.
This kind of reminds me of some Catholic practices, like, say, you've got a big devotion to St. Joseph. And as you start to create, in your imagination and with other spiritual resources, some kind of idea, a representation of St. Joseph and how he goes about his business and what it looks like to imitate him in his embodied form, then you're kind of giving your unconscious mind something to work with.
Yes. Yeah. This is really good because kind of what you're getting at is you're giving yourself a model, something for your unconscious mind to model itself after. And it loves that, having a model to go after. So the saints in many ways are like models. It's the only thing is sometimes I feel like I don't have quite enough information to model them about what it's like. So, for example, I knew this guy, took a training from him, and he was really good at modeling. And one thing he did was he wanted to learn how to be really good at grilling. So he found a chef who was an expert.
Yeah. So you have to understand, this man is a master psychologist.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And when he wants to model somebody, he does not horse around.
Yeah, exactly. So he's modeling not just externally what the person is doing, but he's spending the day with them and he's asking them all these questions because part of the modeling is what's happening internally. And so he's asking this guy like, okay, so what are you saying to yourself right now? The guy's like, what am I saying to myself? I don't know. Oh, okay. I'm saying this looks like, 30 seconds and I'll flip it because I'm seeing XYZ on the thing. And he's like, well, how are you feeling right now? And the chef's like, how am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling like relaxed, confident, I feel really peaceful and calm. So he's getting out all of the things internally that actually affect what he's doing and the outcome he's getting. And that's part of the whole modeling technique for him.
Karen, another thing your elephant wants, it wants a clear and specific direction. It wants to serve you, but as the writer, it's your job to give it some specificity. So one of the questions, what is the target?
Yeah. Okay, this makes sense. And it actually makes sense about why the modeling works so well is because it helps to give the specificity. So instead of saying, as I mentioned, I don't want a dead end job, you can say, I want a job with opportunities, which is positive versus negative. But then you have to start to say, okay, specifically, what kind of opportunities? What does opportunity mean? What will it feel like? What's the picture I'm going for? What's the feeling I'm going for? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So some specificity in terms of what it needs to do next. So for instance, if you are working on your diet, then you can have a weight loss goal. That's pretty typical. That's good. Specific goal. You could put some timelines on that or not, but your unconscious mind still needs a little more help.
Yeah.
Needs some behaviors really to focus on. So what are some behavioral goals that are going to support that? So it could be, I'm going to eat 100 grams of protein a week.
A week?
A day.
A week?
A day.
Whoa, that would be hard. I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, so it's one of those nutritional things. So you might be working on your macros like that.
Yeah. So kind of what you're saying is you want to give it a clear target, and not just in terms of outcome, but in terms of behavior, like what you want it to do.
Yeah. So specificity is the writer's job.
Okay. So this is interesting. I kind of have this love-hate relationship with SMART goals. And I think there's a lot of reasons why they haven't worked for me in the past. And I think they can work. But I think this is actually what they're trying to get at, is getting into the specifics of your goal so that you know it's reasonable, when you want it to happen, what it's going to look like, the timing involved, so that you have something that you can actually aim for. Because when it's vague, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so SMART goals are great. They're giving your unconscious mind something to shoot for, but it doesn't address any of the other things your unconscious mind is doing. It's not really helping you get your unconscious mind on board if it's got some resistance. And that's why really a lot of coaching fails, is because you're just working through the conscious mind. And
Yes.
and you've got that person there giving you some accountability, and that runs along okay. But then the coach goes away, and then you're not doing your thing anymore. And it's because all the underlying stuff, all the basic mechanisms, we've talked about a lot of them, they haven't been addressed.
Right, right. So there can be, what I'm hearing from you is there can be obstacles in the unconscious. And when we're trying to get somewhere, do something, or reach a goal and it's not working, then really we want to investigate, where's the obstacle in the unconscious.
Yeah, and that's where the magic comes in. That's why you get help.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is good, because another thing that your elephant does is, and I think this is where sometimes the obstacles can be, is it's really intent on taking your beliefs and making them a reality.
Oh boy. Yeah, this is huge.
It wants to make your beliefs a reality. So like if you have a belief about the world or yourself or a situation, then your elephant's trying to support that and make it real.
Yeah, and let's just think about this for a minute. Just bear in mind that the universe is coming to you through your senses.
Right.
And so your elephant's heavily invested in understanding that the floor under your feet is there.
Yes.
It's real.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't want you to stub your toe.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot to keep track of. And your beliefs are part of that map of the universe. And so we're going to resist that, so if you've ever been in an earthquake,
Yeah.
it's very disconcerting.
I have been in one.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was your experience? It was freaky. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well,
Uh-oh.
oh no, I totally had forgot about this until you just asked me. So we were in California, and I think it was in the 80s. There was some big earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how you're supposed to like run for the doorway?
Sure.
So like there was at least 3 of us kids in this room, and there was this one doorway that you could stand in. So my brother goes and he stands in the doorway. And I'm like, no, you jerk, you got to go to that other door. So I pushed him out, and he was so mad at me. I'm like, well, if you stand in that doorway, we can't get to the doorways behind you. So really, you're right. It was like very disconcerting, and you can't think clearly.
You can't think.
And your instincts just pop in, whatever they are,
Yeah. Well, there's fight or flight.
Sure, sure.
But still,
Even if it's push your brother out of the doorway.
I know your brothers. They probably deserved it in the
They
moment.
probably did. Yeah.
Probably did. I'll take your side on that one.
Okay.
Don't worry. So we are heavily invested in our map of reality. And of course, that's why it's so hard to get people to change their mind.
Yeah.
Is you're not just appealing to the conscious mind. You have to redo their representation of reality. It's kind of asking a lot.
Right, right. I was just reading about this recently. I think it was called the double down effect, where people have these opinions or beliefs, and when we're presented with evidence to the contrary of our belief, it's like our first response is to just double down on our current belief and dig in and believe more that that's real. And it's just kind of this instinctual unconscious reaction to somebody trying to challenge our belief about reality because we're really invested in making those be true.
That really rings true, just that instinctive response of no way, or you lie,
or whatever research that is, it's rubbish because it doesn't agree with my belief
rubbish
that I already hold. Yeah. So it's actually, this could be really powerful because, I mean, it could be really awesome because if you have a belief like, well, I can learn this, then your elephant's going to get on board with that and be like, yeah, great, we're going to learn this. And it can really help you. On the other hand, it's not so great if you believe something that undermines you, like people think I'm stupid, right?
Yeah. So shifting from I'm not the kind of person that does X to, well, I'm the type of person that can try X.
Yeah.
Is really important shift if you want X.
If you're interested in that. Yeah. Yeah. Some things you want to make reality and some things you maybe don't want your elephant trying to make reality.
Speaking of reality, before we wrap up, Karen, why don't you tell us that airport story you were telling me earlier?
Oh, sure. So I heard about this guy he had created this goal of being more fit, and he wanted to exercise, like build some muscle mass or whatever. So he found himself I'm pretty sure it was the security line at the airport, and the guy in front of him was super fit, like muscular, beefy, just very fit. And he was saying to himself, oh, that's really great. And he was observing in a way like, well, I could probably do blah, 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 and I could get to be more like this
looking
guy.
at that great physical specimen and encouraging himself and saying, well, look, I could be like that.
Exactly.
I could be encouraged by that.
Yeah. And then there's some couple behind him and he overhears them saying something to the effect of, oh my gosh, look at that guy, all brawn and no brain. All brawn and no brains. And he turned around, and I can't remember why he knew that, but it was evident to him that these people were not fit. They were not, however he perceived it, he was like, hey, these were not healthy people who were trying to be healthy and fit. And he just was like, well, if that's what you're saying to yourself, that's the direction you're giving your unconscious mind, it's not going to pursue something that it sees negatively.
Yeah.
They were obviously saying, that's bad. That person is not intelligent. So I was very intrigued by that story and just how that was functioning probably in the lives of those people.
Well, I love how he had his goal and he was looking around and just finding positive reinforcement in his environment and thinking beautiful thoughts about people and being inspired by the good around him.
Right.
It's such a positive approach. So, Karen, I think a lot of the point here is, well, we get a lot of specific tips, but maybe the larger point is, if we can cultivate awareness of our unconscious drivers, it's so helpful, and we should be kind to your elephant as opposed to being mean, because that elephant's you after all. And harshness does not inspire, and you can inspire without being harsh. So be kind to your elephant. Realize it has a few quirks.
Sure. It's trying to serve you.
Yeah. And when you're struggling to get results, maybe one thing you can do is try to ask your elephant, hey, what's going on?
What's the obstacle?
What's needed? What's the obstacle here?
Sure. And maybe try to ask yourself, well, what kind of direction am I giving my elephant really? What am I really telling it I want?
Speaking of direction,
Yes.
we suggest that you, dear listeners, direct yourselves to thecatholicmidlife.com. Look at the
Perfect.
banners there. This is your last chance to sign up for the self-compassion courses that we're offering, one for the women and one for the men.
Yes, starting November 7th.
Starting November 7th.
Awesome.
And you are going to find yourself in a group of impressive
Amazing people.
and learning self-compassion together in a group. That's really how it's done, because you start to see other people like you doing the thing, getting the breakthroughs, making the progress. And it's because your unconscious mind loves to see that
It does.
happening.
It does.
And it's going to start to better internalize everything around it. And when you're in this supportive and informative and dedicated environment, it's going to work for you.
Yes.
We would love to have you.
And we didn't talk about the environment and the unconscious mind, but maybe we'll do that next week. Awesome.
That's great.
Thanks
It's
for
great
today.
to be here with you, everybody, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. It's great to be here with you. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite app or platform. Leave a review. That's so helpful so that others like you can find the podcast. And be sure to tell your friends. We'll see you next week.